Good morning, children. In the previous class, I had explained about the two incidents that happened there on that day. First incident, I had completed that the servants were ready to leave their home, Sadao and Hannah's house. In the afternoon, the second thing happened. Hannah, working hard on an unaccustomed level. She was not habituated to work too much. But as the servants had left, she had to. Working hard on unaccustomed level, saw a messenger come to the door in official uniform. She saw a messenger came in official uniform and was standing at the door. Her hands went weak. She felt weak and she could not draw her breath, almost breathless. The servants must have told already. She understood. The servants must have informed the police. She ran to Sadao, gasping, unable to utter a word. She ran to Sadao, unable to breathe, unable to utter a word. But by then, the messenger had simply followed her through the garden, and there he stood. When she went to Sadao, the messenger had followed her and came through the garden, and he was also standing there. She pointed at him helplessly. Hannah pointed at the messenger. She pointed at him helplessly. Please see from the top. Sadao looked up from his book. He was in his office, the other partition of which was thrown open to the garden for the southern sunshine. The other partition of the office was thrown open to the garden, his garden, for the sunshine. What is it? He asked the messenger. Sadao asked the messenger. Then he rose, stood up, seeing the man's uniform. You are to come to the palace, the man said. When Sadao asked him, what is it? The man replied, Sadao had come to the palace. The old general is in pain again. Oh, Hannah breathed, feeling relieved. Is that all? She asked. She asked the messenger. When the messenger said that the general was in pain and he needed Sadao immediately, because Sadao was the doctor, surgeon. So Hannah understood that he had not come to arrest Sadao. Neither the servants had informed them. So she felt relieved. She asked the messenger, is that all? All? The messenger exclaimed with surprise. All? What does it mean? Is it not enough? The messenger asked. Indeed it is. Of course it is, she replied. Hannah replied, I am very sorry. When Sadao came to say goodbye, she was in the kitchen, but doing nothing. Hannah was doing nothing. The children were asleep and she sat, merely resting for a moment, more exhausted from her fright than from work. She was exhausted more because of her fear than from her work. Next. See the top, please. I thought they had come to arrest you, she said. She said to Hannah. She said to Sadao. He gazed down into her anxious eyes. Sadao looked at her anxious, worried eyes. I must get rid of this man for your sake. Sadao said, he must be free from that American for the sake of Hannah, because Hannah was terrified. He said in distress, sorrow, troubled. Somehow I must get rid of him. Sadao repeated. Then Sadao goes to see the general. They are in the general's palace or house. Of course, the general said weakly, I understand fully. But that is because I once took a degree in Princeton. Here general and Sadao, they are talking. Sadao has come to general's place. He has talked about the American, I think. So, the general is saying, he was weak, feeling weak, but he said, he understands fully, completely, because he had a degree in Princeton, America. So few Japanese have such degree. That's why they would not be able to understand. I care nothing for the man, Excellency, Sadao said. Yes, Sadao now said this. Means Sadao has told about the man to the general. He said he cares nothing for the man, but having operated on him with such success, it means Sadao says that as he had operated the man successfully and saved his life, he would not wish the man to be killed by him only. So he said, but having operated on with him such success, yes, the general said, it only makes me feel you more indispensable. Indispensable means something or someone which is extremely essential, without whom things are not possible. So the general said, that's why it only makes me feel you are more indispensable to me. That's why he feels that Sadao was most essential to general. Evidently, clearly, you can save anyone. You are so skilled, the general is saying to Sadao. You say, you think I can stand one more such attack as I have had today? The general questioned to know about Sadao's opinion about his health. He wanted to know whether he could tolerate one more time the attack as he had that day. Not more than one, Sadao said. The general would not be able to tolerate more than one attack. Then suddenly I can allow nothing to happen to you. So the general said, as there is danger to his life, so he would not allow any danger to come in Sadao's life. Because general had great faith that Sadao could save his life. The general said with anxiety, worries. His long, pale Japanese face became expressionless, speechless, which meant that he was in deep thought. The general was in deep thought. You cannot be arrested, the general said, closing his eyes. He assured Sadao that he would not be arrested. Suppose you were condemned to death. Suppose Sadao was arrested and given death punishment, and the next day I had to have my operation. The next day the general was to be operated. Then what would happen? The general questioned this way. Means the general had the faith that only Sadao could save his life. If there is danger to his life, then means Sadaw's life, then there is danger to the general's life. There are other surgeons, Excellency, Sadaw suggested. Sadaw said, if he was killed, there were other surgeons. None I trust, the general replied. The best ones have been trained by Germans and would consider the operation successful even if I died. The general said, the other surgeons, those who are considered the best ones, they have been trained by Germans, and those who have been trained by Germans, they would consider the operation successful even if the general died. I don't care for their point of view, he sighed. It seems a pity that we cannot better combine the German ruthlessness, cruelty, with the American sentimentality. The general said, it seems a pity that they could not combine both the qualities, the cruelty of the Germans and the sentimentality of the Americans. Then you could turn your prisoner over to execution, and yet I could be sure you would not murder me while I was unconscious. The general said, then Sadaw could turn his prisoner over to execution, to be killed by law. Still, he could be sure, the general could be sure, Sadaw would not murder him, even if he was unconscious. Means the general had great faith that even the wish of Sadaw was not granted, the American was killed by the law. Still then Sadaw would not take revenge on the general. Sadaw would not murder him, even if he was unconscious. Saying this, the general laughed. Again, see from the top. He had an unusual sense of humor, strange sense of humor that the general had. As a Japanese could not combine these two foreign elements. Japanese cannot get both the characters, cruelty and sentimentality. He asked. Sadaw smiled. When he asked this, Sadaw smiled. I am not quite sure, he said, Sadaw said. But for your sake, I would be willing to try, Excellency. He said he would try for the general. On one hand, he is to be cruel. On the other hand, he is to be sentimental. Both the qualities, cruelty on the enemy and sympathetic or sentimentality for the general. He said he would try. The general shook his head. I had rather not be the test case. The general said he should not experiment such quality on the general, he said. General said. Sadaw should not test or experiment such qualities on the general. He felt suddenly weak and overwhelmed with the cares of his life, extremely worried about the cares of his life. As an officer in times such as these, when repeated victory brought great responsibilities all over the South Pacific. The general felt worried because at this point, as an official, in times such as these, when repeated victory brought great responsibilities all over the South Pacific. repeated victories had brought great responsibilities to him. At this moment, he felt very weak and overwhelmed, extremely sentimental, worried, something extreme. It is very unfortunate that this man should have washed up on your doorstep, he said irritably. To some extent, angry. He said, this is very unfortunate that the man had to be washed up at your doorstep. I feel it so myself, Sadao said gently. Sadao also politely said he was thinking the same thing. It would be best if he could be quietly killed, the general said. The general proposed the man should be quietly, silently killed. Not by you, but by someone who doesn't know him. The general said that he should be killed, the man should be killed, not by Sadao, but by someone who didn't know him. I have my own private assassins, killers, murderers. He said he had his own private murderers. Suppose I send 2 of them to your house tonight, or better, any night. Means the general proposed that he should send his private killers to Sadao's house any night. How it would be. The general wanted to know this. You need know nothing about it. It is now warm. What would be more natural than that you should leave the outer partition of the white man's room open to the garden while he sleeps? The general said it is warm time, hot days. If he keeps the door of the white man's room open to the garden at night, then it would be easier for the assassins to enter and kill. He questioned this way, how it would be. The general questioned Sadao. Certainly it would be very natural, Sadao agreed. It would be quite natural, this plan. In fact, it is so left open every night. Sadao said that door is left open every night. Good, the general said, yawning. They are very capable assassins. They make no noise and they know the trick of inward bleeding. The killers, they are very skilled. They can make inward bleeding, internal bleeding. Without any sound, they can kill. If you like, I can even have them remove the body. He said, after killing, they might remove the body if Sadao wanted. Sadao considered that perhaps would be best. Excellency, Sadao said, it would be best. He agreed, thinking of Hana. He agreed with the general because he was thinking of Hana. So children, after this, I am ending today's class. Thank you.